Now, let's talk about Vice President J.D. Vance. He recently addressed young Marines at Conoco, and he had this message as he celebrated what he calls a renewed sense of patriotism.
No more quotas, no more ridiculous mumbo jumbo, no more diversity trainings. We believe the real strength and the real diversity in the United States Marine Corps is that you all come from every walk of life, come from every corner of America, and you have got the strength and the purpose to win the nation's wars. And that is what the Marine Corps is going to do, just like it's done for damn near 250 years.
Josh, DEI is dead, certainly amongst the Marines. It's possibly where it was at its most dangerous and destructive, to have these elite ranks being corrupted by things other than meritocracy, to have diversity, equity, inclusion considerations brought in instead of picking who are the elite soldiers who can serve.
So this was all along one of my top arguments for J.D. Vance actually being vice president of the United States in the first place. I argued this for months and months prior to Donald Trump picking him. And one of the reasons that I think that he is such a good vice president, similarly, actually, one of the reasons why Pete Hegseth is such an inspiring Secretary of Defense, is that these two men are very young. They are in their early to mid 40s, and they are both veterans. They are both combat veterans of the nation's, America's post 9/11 wars. If you want to actually look at what is one of the number one, I would argue probably the number one biggest issue currently facing the United States military, which is plummeting recruitment. The Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, they've all been missing their recruitment goals by double-digit percentages for multiple years in a row. You need people like the Secretary of Defense, and in this case, the Vice freaking President of the United States, guys who have actually fought in these wars there, to go inspire the young soldiers, sailors, and Marines, to actually go there and put out videos that are disseminated across national television. They're trying to inspire young Americans to actually go to your local recruitment office and serve the military again there. That is exactly what this country needs right now. But thankfully, Rita, at this point, DEI in the military is out. Crippling Obama, Biden-esque rules of engagement seem to be out the door there. America at this point is going to fight limited wars, but when we enter those wars, we are going to enter those wars to win. That is the way that it should be, and J.D. Vance, I think, embodies that to his core.
Now to the activist judges who think they can overrule the duly elected president. This is the real constitutional crisis, if you ask me, Josh. And the New York Post reports that the daughter of DC District Court Judge, Chief Judge James Boasberg, he's the one who tried to stop the Trump administration from deporting gangbangers to El Salvador. Well, the daughter is employed by a non-profit that received millions in government funding and opposes the Lake and Riley Act. His wife is also reportedly involved in a pro-abortion NGO, partly funded by USAID. Josh, how is the administration going to handle these activist judges going forward?
So thankfully, Rita, Congress and the president have all sorts of remedies that they can attempt to get across the finish line when it comes to reining in what Alexander Hamilton famously referred to as the least dangerous branch, which is the judiciary. So actually, just in today's Wall Street Journal, Chuck Grassley, the senator from Iowa, has this wonderful op-ed praising his new legislation seeking to put an end to so-called nationwide injunctions, trying to bring back the commonsensical notion that when a judge issues an injunction, it binds only two parties, the plaintiff and the defendant. What a concept, this notion that a judicial ruling could actually just bind the people before the court there. So that's one very basic thing. Congress could also enact so-called jurisdiction stripping legislation. They could basically just take certain types of substantive jurisdiction, whether it's immigration law, abortion law, whatever they want to, literally just take it away from federal judges, then move it to state courts. That is something that I've been arguing since my law school days should actually be much more frequent. Another thing that I actually do want to see some more momentum here is the idea of judicial impeachment. It's not actually going to go anywhere in the Senate. I'm sober about that. But I do think that you have to start making an example of at least one or two of these judges, whether it's Judge Boasberg in Washington, D.C., Judge McConnell. He's the USAID judge up in the state of Rhode Island there. These guys have to be made an example of, because you have to send a message, a shot across the bow, that we're not going to tolerate this behavior there, that we're not going to allow one judge to shut down the entire executive branch. That is not the system the founders devised. And thankfully, I think President Trump and his allies in Congress do acknowledge this. They understand that it's only a question of time, frankly, until these lower court judges are put in their place.